I was replacing the kitchen faucet while my wife had her monthly book club when I overheard them planning to destroy my life. But they had no idea I was recording everything. My wife, Sienna, was hosting her monthly book club in our living room. I was under the kitchen sink fixing our leaky faucet, completely hidden from view but able to hear everything through the half wall that connects our kitchen to the living room. At first, it was the usual stuff, talking about the book. None of them actually read, gossiping about neighbors, complaining about their jobs, normal book club chatter that I'd heard dozens of times before. Then Sienna's best friend, Celeste, asked something that made my blood run cold. "So, when are you finally leaving that pathetic excuse for a man?" I literally froze under the sink, wrench in hand, not daring to move a muscle. Sienna sighed deeply. "Soon. Dad's lawyer is setting everything up. We're claiming abuse, infidelity, hidden assets, the whole playbook." Another friend, Tegan, seemed confused. "But he seems so nice when I've met him." My wife actually laughed at that. "Nice doesn't pay for European vacations. Nice doesn't buy designer handbags. I married potential and got a complete dud instead." That's when something cold and calculating took over. Instead of jumping out and confronting them, I slowly reached for my phone and started recording everything. Her sister Nicole joined the conversation. "Remember what we talked about? You need to start more fights with him. We need evidence of his aggressive behavior. Throw things, yell, make him react so you can record it." Sienna bragged. "I'm already ahead of you. I've been secretly recording our conversations for weeks, and I even learned how to edit the audio files to make him sound more aggressive and threatening." Then her mom called on speakerphone, and I heard the most devastating part. "Honey, did you move the money from your joint accounts yet?" "I'm doing it tomorrow morning," Sienna replied. $47,000 transferred to my personal account. He's so trusting he never even checks the bank statements. They spent the next hour planning my complete destruction in excruciating detail. Fake bruises using makeup tutorials they'd watched on YouTube. Staged photographs of evidence. How she'd claim I was hiding business assets. How her dad's connections would ensure she got at least 70% of my construction company that I'd built from absolutely nothing over the past decade. I kept recording every single word while they casually dismantled my entire life on paper. When they finally switched back to talking about the actual book, I quietly finished installing the faucet and slipped out through our back door. I told Sienna I needed to run to the hardware store for a part. The moment I got in my truck, I called my bank and changed every password. Then I called my business account and did the same thing. Finally, I called my best friend, Thomas, and told him everything that had just happened. Monday morning, Sienna started her campaign exactly as planned. She picked fights over dirty dishes in the sink, a sock left on the bedroom floor, even how loudly I chewed my cereal. I stayed completely calm and didn't engage, which clearly frustrated her. That night, I checked our joint account, and sure enough, she had transferred exactly $47,000 to her personal account, just like she'd promised her mom. I took screenshots of everything. Tuesday evening was the most surreal experience of my life. She made my favorite dinner, steak and potatoes with all the fixings. Candles were lit. She was wearing the anniversary dress I bought her last year. It was so bizarre watching her put on this elaborate performance when I knew exactly what was happening behind the scenes. During dinner, she casually mentioned that her dad was interested in investing in my business. Said he could help me take it to the next level. I just nodded and said I'd think about it, knowing she was trying to get her family's hooks into my company before filing for divorce. This morning, everything came to a head. I caught her going through my phone while I was in the shower. I forwarded every single defensive, angry message to our family group chat. My brother, who I hadn't heard from in months, sent a private message. "Check your email. Don't open it around the kids." The video file was from Thanksgiving Day. Someone had set up a camera in Mom's living room. I watched as Amber and Mom laughed about us sitting in the car. "They'll wait," Amber said. "They always do." Then the camera caught something else. Mom handing Amber a check. "For dealing with her," Mom said. The timestamp showed it was from 2:01 p.m., 2 minutes before we knocked on the door. Look, I'm not gonna lie, seeing that timestamp made everything click into place. All those little moments I'd brushed off as paranoia suddenly made perfect sense. Like 3 months ago when I mentioned updating our will and she got weird about it, changing the subject real quick. Or how she'd been extra friendly with my business contacts lately, asking about projects and timelines in a way that seemed innocent but now felt calculated. I stared at my laptop screen, my hands literally shaking, trying to process what I was looking at. The video kept playing and I watched my brother's wife setting up appetizers while Amber scrolled through her phone, smirking. At one point, Amber showed her phone screen to my mom and they both laughed. I couldn't see what was on it, but I didn't need to. The whole thing was orchestrated. They'd actually paid her to make us wait outside like dogs. That's when I heard the shower turn off upstairs. Sienna was done. I had maybe 2 minutes before she came down. I closed my laptop, took a breath, and tried to compose myself. My mind was racing through everything. The book club recordings, the money transfer, now this video from my brother. It was like puzzle pieces clicking together, forming this picture I really didn't want to see. I confronted her the moment she walked into the kitchen, hair still wet. wearing one of my old college t-shirts. The one from the construction management program I'd graduated from a decade ago, actually. Kind of ironic, if you think about it. I kept my voice level, controlled. "So, I noticed you went through my phone this morning." Her face. Man, it was like watching someone flip a switch. One second she looked guilty, caught off guard, and the next second she was screaming. I mean, really screaming. "You always do this. You always accuse me of things." I was just checking the time because my phone was dead. The thing is, her phone was literally sitting on the counter next to her, fully charged. The screen was even lit up with a notification. I could see the battery icon from where I was standing, that little green 94% in the corner. She saw me notice it and got even louder, more aggressive. Started yelling about how I never trusted her, how I was controlling, how she felt like she was walking on eggshells in her own house. "I can't do anything without you questioning me." She was pacing now, waving her hands around. "You know what? This is exactly why I can't talk to you about anything. You're always suspicious, always assuming the worst." And here's where it got really interesting. She reached for her phone, not to call someone, but positioning it like she was about to start recording. I recognized the angle, the way she was holding it. She was trying to provoke me into reacting, into giving her that footage she could edit and use later. So I did something she absolutely didn't expect. I stayed completely silent, didn't say a word, just looked at her for about 5 seconds, then turned around, walked upstairs, and packed my laptop and external hard drive containing all my business files into my work bag. She followed me the whole time, still yelling, her phone definitely recording now. "Where are you going? You can't just leave in the middle of a conversation. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're so emotionally unavailable." I grabbed my truck keys from the dresser, slung my bag over my shoulder, and walked right past her without saying a single word. The frustration on her face was actually kind of scary, like she was genuinely angry that I wasn't playing along with her script. I drove straight to my business partner's house. Jake and I had been running the construction company together for 8 years. Started it right after I'd finished working for this terrible contractor who treated his workers like garbage and cut corners on every job. Jake had been working there too, and one night after work we were having beers and basically said, "Screw it, we could do this better ourselves." Took out loans, maxed out credit cards, worked 16-hour days for the first 2 years. But we'd built something real, something we were proud of. If anyone was going to understand the gravity of this situation, it was him. His wife, Priya, answered the door looking concerned. She had flour on her hands, smelled like she'd been baking. "Everything okay? You look terrible. Is Jake here? I really need to talk to him." My voice must have sounded as stressed as I felt because she didn't ask any more questions, just called for Jake and led me inside. 20 minutes later, the three of us were sitting at their kitchen table, and I was playing them the recordings from book club. Priya's hand went to her mouth about 30 seconds in. Jake just sat there, his jaw getting tighter and tighter. When it got to the part about her dad trying to get 70% of our company, Jake actually stood up from the table. "That son of a..." He stopped himself, looked at his wife, then back at me. Okay, we need to move fast. Right now, like right this second." Priya poured us coffee even though it was almost 8 at night. Neither of us were sleeping anytime soon anyway. She sat back down and said, "What do you need? What can we do?" "First thing, we locked down every business account," Jake said, already pulling out his laptop. "She's got your social security number, right? Probably knows your mother's maiden name. All that security question stuff?" I nodded. "We've been married for 6 years. She's got access to everything." "Not anymore, she doesn't." Jake was typing fast, pulling up our business banking portal. "We're changing every single password, every single security question. We're setting up 2-factor authentication on anything that'll let us. And we're moving the money, tonight." We spent the next 3 hours changing every single password to every business account we had. Email, banking, client portals, project management software, everything. Jake removed Sienna from the emergency contact list at our business bank, something I hadn't even thought about. Apparently, she'd been listed as someone who could get information about the account if something happened to me. "Who even put her on there?" I asked. "You did. 2 years ago when we were applying for that line of credit. Bank required we have emergency contacts for both partners. You listed Sienna, I listed Priya. Remember?" I didn't remember, but it sounded right. What else have I forgotten about? We made a list. Insurance beneficiaries, company credit cards she might have access to, vendor accounts where my personal email was listed. It was like doing a security audit of my entire life. Priya helped, making notes, looking stuff up on her phone, keeping us organized. "You know she's gonna lose it when she realizes she can't touch anything," Jake said around midnight, typing away on his laptop. We'd just moved all the company funds to a new secured account that required both of our signatures for any transaction over $500. "You know she's gonna lose it when she realizes she can't touch anything," Jake said, typing away on his laptop. "Good," I replied. My phone had been buzzing in my pocket the entire time. By the time we finished securing everything, Sienna had called me 17 times. 17. The voicemail started angry, really angry, screaming about how I'd embarrassed her by walking out, how I was being childish, how dare I ignore her calls. Then, they shifted to apologetic. crying, saying she overreacted, that we just needed to talk this through like adults. Please come home. Then back to threatening. Her father was going to hear about this. I was going to regret treating her this way. She had proof of emotional abuse. Her lawyer would destroy me. I saved every single message without responding to any of them. Not a single text, not a single call back. Nothing. The next morning, I showed up at our current job site around 6:30. We were doing a major renovation on a commercial building downtown, and I wanted to check on the progress before the crew arrived. That's when I saw Sienna's white SUV pull into the lot, and right behind her, this massive black Mercedes, her father. You know, I'd met Steven maybe 4 times in the entire marriage. Sienna always made excuses for why he was too busy for family dinners, too important for holidays. Now I understood why. The man who stepped out of that Mercedes looked like he'd never done a day of real work in his life. Designer suit, Rolex that probably cost more than my truck, shoes so shiny I could see my reflection from 20 feet away. Sienna stormed toward the site trailer where Jake and I were reviewing plans, her dad following behind at a more measured pace. Before she could even reach the door, Jake stepped out and blocked the entrance. "I'm going to need you to leave this property," Jake said, his voice professional but firm. "Excuse me?" Steven's voice had that tone rich people get when they're not used to being told no. "Do you know who I am?" "Don't care who you are. This is private property, and you're trespassing." Jake crossed his arms. He's not a big guy, but he's got this presence, you know? Former military. "You've got about 30 seconds before I call the cops and have you both escorted out." Sienna's face turned red. "You can't do this! I'm his wife!" "And this is our business property," Jake replied. "Your husband is my business partner. You're not welcome here. Leave." I watched from the trailer window as her father pulled out his phone, clearly making a call. His face had gone from annoyed to calculating. He said something to Sienna, put his hand on her shoulder, and they both got back in their vehicles and left. But the look Steven gave the building before he drove off, that was a promise of war. The phone calls started the next day. Our clients, the ones we'd been working with for years, started getting calls from someone claiming to be concerned about our company's financial stability. By Tuesday afternoon, I had 3 separate clients requesting emergency meetings to discuss their ongoing projects. The stories were all similar. Someone had told them we were over-leveraged, that I was going through a messy personal situation that was affecting the business, that I was potentially abusive to my spouse and they should consider if they wanted to be associated with someone like that. The first meeting was with the Johnsons, this couple who'd hired us to renovate their entire first floor. Been working with them for 3 months, everything was going great. Mrs. Johnson looked uncomfortable the whole time. "We just want to make sure everything's okay with the project. We heard some concerning things." "What kind of things?" I asked, even though I knew exactly what kind of things. Mr. Johnson cleared his throat. "Look, we don't want to pry into your personal life, but someone called and said your company might be having financial difficulties, that you're going through some personal troubles that could impact your ability to finish our project." I pulled out the financial documentation I'd prepared, project timeline showing we were actually 2 days ahead of schedule, bank statements proving the company had healthy reserves, photos of their progress with dated timestamps. "Here's where we are. Here's where we'll be in 2 weeks. The company is completely stable. Yes, I'm going through a separation, but it has 0 impact on my ability to do my job. I've been in this business for 15 years. This is one of dozens of projects we're managing successfully." They looked relieved, honestly. Mrs. Johnson smiled apologetically. "We thought it was probably nonsense. You've been nothing but professional. We just had to ask, you understand." The second meeting was similar. A guy named Brennan who owned a commercial property we were working on. He'd heard rumors, wanted reassurance. I provided evidence. He was satisfied. But the third one, Peterson, he was different from the start. Walked into our site trailer with his arms crossed. Wouldn't even sit down. "I'm terminating our contract. My attorney's already drawn up the paperwork. Can I ask why?" I tried to stay calm even though my heart was racing. This was an $85,000 job. "I don't do business with people who have these kinds of problems. My reputation matters. I can't be associated with someone who..." He trailed off, not wanting to say it directly. "Someone who what? Who's being falsely accused by his ex-wife? Someone who has recordings proving she planned to frame him?" I pulled out my phone. "You want to hear them? I've got hours of audio." Peterson held up his hand. "I don't need to hear anything. Steven's a friend of mine. We went to college together. I trust his judgment on this." And there it was. Didn't matter what the truth was. Didn't matter what evidence I had. Peterson and Steven were buddies. Probably golfed together on weekends. Maybe their wives had lunch dates. "So you're terminating based on what a friend told you, not based on our work quality or any actual evidence of wrongdoing." "I'm terminating because I can. Contract has a 30-day out clause. I'm exercising it." He dropped an envelope on Jake's desk. "You'll be compensated for work completed to date." but we're done." He left before I could say anything else. I just stood there, staring at that envelope, doing the math in my head. 85,000 minus what we'd already been paid meant we were losing about 60 grand. And I'd have to lay off workers because we didn't have enough projects to keep everyone busy now. I had to lay off 2 of my workers the next day, Dennis and Julio, both good guys. Dennis had been with us for 4 years, never missed a day, always showed up early. Julio was newer but eager, learning fast, and his wife was 8 months pregnant with their first kid. Having to tell them we didn't have enough work was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. "It's temporary," I promised them, even though I wasn't sure if that was true. "The second we get more projects, you're first on the callback list. I've got your numbers." Dennis just nodded, shook my hand. "I understand, boss. You gotta do what you gotta do." Julio looked like he might cry. "I get it. Thanks for being straight with us." I wrote them both checks that included 2 extra weeks of pay that we didn't technically owe them. Jake didn't question it, just co-signed the checks. After they left, he looked at me and said, "We're gonna make this right. We're gonna get those projects back and hire them back. I don't care what it takes." Thursday morning, I got a certified letter delivered to the job site. FedEx guy handed it to me right there in the trailer, made me sign for it. The return address was from Hayes and Associates, some big law firm downtown. Inside was a notice that Sienna was filing for legal separation and demanding I move out of our house within 72 hours. The letter claimed she feared for her safety and couldn't remain in the residence with me any longer. The thing is, the house was only in my name. I'd bought it 2 years before we even met, fixed it up myself on weekends, replaced the roof, updated all the plumbing, even built the deck in the backyard. When we got married, she said she didn't want to deal with the hassle of putting her name on the deed. Said it was too much paperwork, too expensive with all the title transfer fees and everything. Now I know why. She never intended to stay. I called her. Big mistake. She picked up on the first ring, like she'd been waiting. "You need to move out, Sienna. That's my house." "Our house," she corrected, her voice ice cold. "And I'm not going anywhere. You're the threat here. I've documented everything. The mortgage is in my name. The deed is in my name. Legally, it's my house." I was trying to stay calm, but my voice was rising. "We'll see what a judge says about that. Marital property laws are pretty clear. And when they hear about how you've been treating me, yeah, good luck keeping anything." She hung up on me. That afternoon, I left work early to pick up supplies from the lumber yard for another job. When I got home around 4, my key wouldn't work in the front door. I tried it 3 times, thinking maybe I was using the wrong key somehow. But no, the lock had been changed. All of them. Front door, back door, even the side door to the garage. She'd changed every single lock in the house. I stood there for like a full minute, just processing the audacity. The absolute nerve of changing locks on a house she didn't even own. Then I called a locksmith. Had to wait an hour for the guy to show up because apparently everyone needs a locksmith on Thursday afternoons. When he finally arrived, I had to show him everything. The property deed with my name on it, my driver's license with that address, 3 years of mortgage statements, utility bills, everything to prove I was the legal owner. He looked at the documents, looked at me, then shook his head. "You'd be surprised how often I see this. Divorces, man. They get ugly." He rekeyed the locks while I stood there fuming, and the whole time I was thinking about what I was going to find inside. What else had she done? What else was she planning? The locksmith must have sensed something because he said, "You might want to take pictures of everything when you go in. Document what you find. These situations, evidence matters." Smart guy. I took his advice. What I found inside was worse than I imagined. She'd staged a complete crime scene. That's the only way to describe it. The living room looked like a tornado had hit it. Picture frames were scattered across the floor. Glass shattered everywhere. Our wedding photo, the one that used to sit on the mantel, was face down in the middle of the room with the frame bent at an angle. There was a hole punched in the hallway wall, right at about shoulder height, the drywall crumbling around it with white powder all over the floor. Kitchen chairs were overturned, one of them actually broken with a leg snapped off. Her makeup was smeared on the bathroom counter. Foundation and concealer spread around like there'd been some kind of struggle. Even found a clump of hair, probably her extensions, left dramatically on the bathroom tile. It was like walking into a movie set. Everything placed just so, carefully arranged to look chaotic. The hole in the wall was too clean, too perfectly placed. The scattered frames were mostly empty ones or photos of her family, nothing that actually mattered to her. The broken chair was the wobbly one from the set we'd gotten at a garage sale years ago, the one we'd talked about replacing anyway. I pulled out my phone immediately and started recording. Time-stamped everything. I filmed myself entering the house, showed my knuckles. No marks or bruising whatsoever. Narrated what I was finding as I went through each room. This is obviously staged. I just got here. My key didn't work because she changed the locks. None of this was here this morning when I left for work. I was in the middle of cleaning up the mess, picking up glass shards carefully so I wouldn't cut myself when I heard multiple car doors slam outside. Through the window, I saw Sienna getting out of her SUV, along with her sister Nicole and their mom, Patricia. Great. The whole cavalry. All three of them storming up the driveway like they were heading into battle. They came in through the back door, which I'd unlocked when I'd brought in my work bag earlier. Should have locked it behind me. Sienna started screaming the moment she saw me in the living room. "What are you doing here? You can't be here." "This is my house, Sienna. We've been over this." I set down the dustpan full of broken glass carefully, made sure I kept my hands visible. "Get out! Get out right now!" Her face was red, veins popping in her neck from how hard she was yelling. Nicole immediately pulled out her phone, started recording. I could see her finger on the screen, the little red dot indicating she was filming. She positioned herself at an angle to get both of us in the shot. Their mom jumped in, her voice shaking with manufactured emotion. "You need to leave before we call the police. Look at what you've done to this place. This is evidence of violence. This is proof of what we've been saying. I didn't do anything. I just got home and found it like this." I kept my voice level, calm, even though every instinct was screaming at me to yell back. My own phone was set up on the kitchen counter, propped against the toaster, recording everything at an angle that captured the whole room. "Liar!" Sienna shouted. "You're always lying. You punched that hole in the wall. You threw those frames. You've been getting more and more violent, and I've been scared, and now everyone can see it." That's when Nicole did something really interesting. She walked backward toward the kitchen table, not looking where she was going, bumped into the edge pretty hard, and then sort of stumbled sideways into the wall like she'd been pushed. "Ow! Stop pushing me!" She grabbed her arm like she was hurt, really selling it. I hadn't moved from where I was standing, about 6 feet away from her, my hands literally at my sides holding a dustpan. "I didn't touch you." "Yes, you did. Mom, did you see that?" Nicole's voice was high, panicked. She was really committed to her performance. "He just shoved me into the table." Patricia pointed at me, her hand shaking for effect. "We all saw it. You're being aggressive. This is exactly what Sienna's been telling us. You can't control your temper." I kept my hands visible, at my sides, and just repeated calmly, "This is my house. You all need to leave. Now. This is trespassing." Sienna started crying then, these big dramatic sobs that sounded almost rehearsed. "I can't believe you're doing this to me, after everything I've done for you. I've been nothing but a good wife, and you treat me like this. I gave up my career for you. I supported your business. And this is what I get?" The back door opened again with a bang and Stephen walked in. His entrance had perfect timing, like they'd planned this whole thing down to the minute. He probably had been waiting in his car around the corner, waiting for their signal. He took one look at the scene, his daughter crying with mascara running down her face, his other daughter holding her arm like she'd been injured, his wife looking terrified, and his expression darkened into something genuinely scary. "All right, that's enough," he said, his voice low and dangerous, the kind of voice that probably made people jump in his office. "You're going to regret this, son. I've already made calls. 3 of your clients are going to drop you by end of week. That permit you applied for on the Henderson project? Already denied. I've got friends on the city council, real close friends who owe me favors. I can have inspections on every single one of your active sites, and trust me, they'll find violations. They always find something if they look hard enough. You think you can mess with my daughter and walk away clean? You think you can come into your house? Yeah, that's right, your house, and terrorize my family like this?" He stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his physical presence. The guy was probably 60 years old and soft from decades of desk work, but he was taller than me by a few inches and he was using it. "By the time I'm done with you, you won't be able to get a job cleaning toilets in this town. Your business will be finished. Your reputation will be destroyed. Everyone will know exactly what kind of man you are. And that company you think you built? I'm going to pick it apart piece by piece. 50-50 split with my daughter at minimum. But honestly, my lawyer thinks we can get closer to 70-30. And you know what's beautiful? You can't do anything about it. You've got no proof. It's your word against all of ours." I pulled out my phone, the one that had been recording from the counter, and turned the screen toward all of them. "Before you make any more threats, I think you should hear something." I played 30 seconds from the book club recording, just the part where Sienna explicitly says she's going to frame me for abuse and steal money from our accounts. The room went completely silent except for her voice coming from my phone speaker. "I'm already ahead of you. I've been secretly recording our conversations for weeks, and I even learned how to edit the audio files to make him sound more aggressive and threatening." Sienna's face went white. Patricia actually took a step back. Nicole lowered her phone. Stephen's expression shifted from threatening to calculating in about 2 seconds flat. "We can work this out," Stephen said after a long pause. He'd completely changed his tone. "Obviously, emotions are running high here. We're all family. Why don't we sit down, talk this through like adults? I'm sure we can reach an agreement that works for everyone." "What kind of agreement?" I asked. already knowing where this was going. A quiet separation. You split assets 50-50. Both parties sign non-disclosure agreements. Clean break. Nobody talks to anybody about what was said or done. We keep this out of court, out of the public eye, and everyone moves on with their lives. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I'm even willing to compensate you for your discretion. Say, an extra $50,000 on top of your share, just to keep those recordings private. He was trying to buy my silence. Pay me off to bury the evidence of what his daughter had tried to do. No, I said simply. Get out of my house. All of you. Right now. You're making a mistake, Stephen warned. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Leave before I call the cops for trespassing. They left. But I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Over the next week, Sienna systematically emptied the house of anything valuable. I came home one day and my grandmother's antique dining set was gone. The set she'd brought over from Ireland in the 50s, the one my dad had eaten at as a kid, the TV from the living room, my laptop from the bedroom office. She even took the washer and dryer from the laundry room. The kitchen counters were bare. No coffee maker, no toaster, nothing. I documented everything with photos and pulled out receipts for what I had them. But honestly, I didn't even try to get the stuff back. I was more focused on making sure my employees still had jobs and that the business didn't go under. Things could be replaced. My company couldn't. Then, something unexpected happened. About a week after the confrontation at my house, Celeste, the friend who'd been at book club, the one who'd first asked when Sienna was leaving me, she sent me a message on Facebook. It was late at night, like 2 in the morning. Just said, "Can we meet? There's something you need to know. I can't keep quiet about this anymore." We met at a coffee shop downtown 2 days later, one of those hipster places with overpriced lattes and exposed brick walls, vintage light bulbs hanging from the ceiling, chalkboard menus that took up entire walls. The kind of place Sienna used to drag me to for Sunday brunch. Celeste was already there when I arrived, sitting in the back corner looking like she hadn't slept in days. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy bun, clothes rumpled. She looked uncomfortable the entire time, kept fidgeting with her napkin, tearing little pieces off and rolling them between her fingers. "Thanks for meeting me," she said as I sat down. "I wasn't sure if you'd come. Your message made it sound important." I ordered a black coffee from the barista who came over, nothing fancy. Celeste already had some complicated drink in front of her, half finished. She took a breath. "I feel terrible about all of this. Like, genuinely sick to my stomach. I haven't been sleeping. I keep thinking about that night at book club and what we talked about and how we sat there and planned out how to ruin your life like it was a fun little project. Like we were planning a surprise party or something. You participated in it," I said, trying not to sound too accusatory, but, I mean, she had. I know I did, and I need you to understand. I never actually thought she'd go through with it. Celeste's eyes were filling with tears. I thought she was just venting, you know? Girls talk. We say stuff we don't mean. We fantasize about revenge on exes. We joke about getting even, but we don't actually do it. It's like therapeutic complaining or whatever. I never thought she was serious, but she was serious. Very serious. "Yeah," Celeste wiped her eyes with the shredded napkin. I started realizing that about halfway through the night. The way she was talking, it wasn't venting anymore. She had specific plans. She'd thought everything through, and then when they started discussing the makeup tutorials for fake bruises and how to provoke you into reacting, something felt really wrong. Like we'd crossed a line from venting into actual conspiracy. She pulled out her phone from her purse, an iPhone with a cracked screen. I felt really uncomfortable with what they were planning, especially the part about the makeup bruises and provoking you. The fake bruises thing, especially. That just felt evil, you know? So I started recording on my phone just in case, in case something bad happened and someone needed proof of what was actually said. I kept it in my lap, recording. They had no idea. "You recorded it too?" I felt something like hope stirring in my chest. "Different parts than what you probably got. You were under the sink, right? I heard them mention that later. You couldn't see us, just heard us. But I was sitting right there on the couch with my phone in my lap. I've got video. Not great video because I was trying to be subtle, mostly just the coffee table and parts of people's legs, but the audio is crystal clear. And I caught stuff that happened when people moved around, went to the bathroom, things like that. Conversations you probably didn't hear. She transferred the files to me right there, using AirDrop. 3 separate video files, about 20 minutes each. I'd have to watch them later, but just knowing they existed felt like ammunition. "There's one part in particular you need to hear," Celeste said, pulling her phone back. She scrolled through one of the videos, found a timestamp, hit play. The audio was shaky but clear. Sienna's voice talking to her mom in what sounded like the kitchen or hallway, probably thinking they were out of earshot. "He's so stupid he doesn't even check the bank accounts," Sienna was saying. "I could probably take more than 47,000 and he wouldn't notice for months. But Dad said to stick with that amount, said it's the perfect number. Big enough to matter, small enough that it doesn't trigger automatic bank alerts." Her mom laughed. "And you're sure he hasn't caught on? He hasn't been suspicious at all? Please. The man is clueless. I've been documenting everything for weeks and he has no idea. I've got recordings, I've got notes, I've even got photos staged and ready to go. By the time I file, his reputation will be destroyed and he won't have a leg to stand on in court. Why are you giving this to me? I asked, still processing everything. Celeste looked out the window, watching people walk by on the sidewalk. Young couples holding coffee cups, professionals in suits hurrying to wherever, a dog walker with like 6 dogs on leashes, normal life continuing while mine was falling apart, because what she's doing is wrong. I've known Sienna since college. We were roommates, sophomore year. She's my friend, or she was. We've been through everything together, breakups and job losses and family drama, but I can't be part of this. I can't watch her deliberately destroy someone's life for money. That's not friendship. That's being an accomplice to something terrible. Have you talked to her about it? I tried. Yesterday. I told her I couldn't do book club anymore, couldn't be around this situation. She completely flipped out on me, started screaming, saying I was being disloyal, that she'd always been there for me when I was going through my divorce, and now when she needed me most, I was abandoning her. She actually said I was choosing you over her, like this is some kind of loyalty test. Celeste laughed bitterly, no humor in it. She texted me like 50 times last night, calling me a traitor, saying I never really cared about her, that she knows I was always jealous of her marriage. Then this morning she posted this vague thing on Facebook about fake friends who show their true colors in tough times. Everyone knows it's about me. I felt bad for her, honestly. She was losing a friendship, trying to do the right thing. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of this. Don't be. I'm choosing to be here. And honestly, I think I need to say this stuff out loud to someone. I've been feeling so guilty. She finished her coffee, set the cup down with shaky hands. There's something else you should know. That night at book club, after you left, and we'd switched back to talking about the actual book for like 10 minutes, Sienna got really drunk. Like really drunk. And she started saying stuff about how she'd been planning this for almost a year. How she'd known for months she was going to leave you but wanted to make sure she got as much as possible. Said her dad had been coaching her on strategy. Her mom had been helping her practice reactions, rehearse responses. It was like this whole family operation. Word started spreading through our social circle about the separation pretty quickly after that. Small town, you know? Everyone knows everyone's business within a week. And Sienna, she went full victim mode on social media. I'm talking daily posts. Long, emotional messages about surviving abuse, finding the strength to leave, how hard it was to start over. She never said my name directly, kept it vague enough to avoid legal issues, but everyone knew who she was talking about. Posted these photos of herself looking sad and tearful, always in soft lighting that made her look vulnerable. Quotes from relationship therapists about recognizing toxic patterns. Links to domestic violence resources with captions like, "I wish I'd known about these sooner." The comments were always the same, hundreds of them. "You're so strong. I'm proud of you for getting out. He never deserved you. You're an inspiration." People who didn't know the full story, who just saw a woman claiming to be a victim and immediately believed her because why would someone lie about that? People started treating me differently everywhere I went. The grocery store was the worst. I'd be in the produce section, picking out apples or whatever, and I'd see someone I knew from neighborhood barbecues. We'd make eye contact and they'd literally turn around and walk the other way. Or they'd see me coming down the aisle and suddenly find something really interesting to look at on their phone until I passed. The cashiers who used to chat with me about sports or weather would just scan my items in silence, not making eye contact. My gym buddy, a guy named Taylor that I'd been working out with for 3 years, stopped returning my texts completely. We'd had this routine, Tuesday and Thursday mornings at 6, chest and back day, always spotted each other on bench press. I texted him asking if we were still on for Tuesday. No response. Texted again Thursday. Nothing. Saw him at the gym the following week working out with someone else, and when he saw me, he picked up his stuff and moved to a different part of the gym. Didn't even acknowledge me. Then someone spray painted my truck. Found it on a Wednesday morning when I was heading to work. Bright red paint, the word abuser in huge letters across the driver's side door, dripping down onto the side panel, impossible to miss. Someone had done it in the middle of the night, in my own driveway. I stood there staring at it for like 5 minutes, coffee getting cold in my hand, trying to process that someone hated me enough to vandalize my vehicle over accusations they'd only heard on social media. Had to drive it to work like that because I didn't have time to get it painted over before we had to be on site. Every red light, I could see people in other cars staring, some taking pictures with their phones, probably posting them online with captions about karma or justice or whatever made them feel righteous. That's when I decided to stop being quiet about it. I created a private online folder with all the recordings, screenshots, bank statements, showing the theft, everything. I wrote up a detailed timeline of what had actually happened. Then I sent access links to 15 people who knew us both well. I wasn't asking them to pick sides. I just said, you deserve to know the truth before you judge me. One of the people I sent it to was Jade, Sienna's cousin. She'd always been cool to me, never bought into the family drama. She called me 2 hours after I sent the link, literally in tears. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Sienna told us you were controlling, that you monitored her spending, that she had to ask permission to see her friends. I believed her. I feel like an idiot. It's not your fault. She's convincing. I'm going to talk to the family. This is wrong. They need to hear this. And she did. Jade started quietly sharing what she'd heard with other family members. The cousins, her aunt, even Sienna's younger brother, Nathan. The family started dividing. Sienna's parents and Nicole stood firmly behind her, obviously. But Jade, Nathan, their Aunt Georgia, they all started questioning Sienna's version of events and pulling back their support. Meanwhile, Sienna escalated her social media campaign, posted photos of herself looking tearful, with captions about surviving abuse and finding strength to leave, quoted inspirational messages about toxic relationships and knowing your worth. The comments were all supportive, hundreds of them. People who didn't know the full story rallying behind her. It was surreal, watching her paint herself as the victim when I had recordings of her planning my destruction. Nathan, Sienna's brother, he didn't mess around once he heard the truth. He drove straight to their parents' house where Sienna was staying and confronted her. I know because he told me about it later. He said he walked in, played part of the recordings for everyone there, and just said, "You want to explain this?" Apparently, Sienna tried to claim the recordings were edited, taken out of context, but Nathan wasn't having it. He told me his exact words were, "I've known you my whole life. I know what you sound like when you're lying. This is sick. What you tried to do to him is sick." Stephen, her dad, threatened to cut Nathan off financially if he kept defending me. Nathan worked at one of Stephen's properties, lived in an apartment Stephen owned. It was a real power move. But Nathan told him to shove it and moved out that same week, crashed on a friend's couch until he found his own place. "I'm not going to be part of covering this up," he told Stephen. "I don't care what it costs me. What she did was wrong." The family fallout was intense. Thanksgiving was coming up in a few weeks, and I heard through Jade that the family was completely split. Some people weren't speaking to others. Long-standing relationships destroyed because Sienna's scheme had failed, and the truth came out. Then, 2 of the clients who'd terminated contracts after Peterson did, they reached out. Apparently, the recordings had made their way through the local business community, probably through someone who knew someone who'd seen them. One of the guys called me directly. "Hey, I owe you an apology. I heard some things about what really happened, and, I feel pretty stupid for believing what I was told. Any chance you'd be willing to take our project back on? I'll pay for any delays my decision caused." I rehired my 2 laid-off workers the next day, got both projects back on schedule. The company was stabilizing, and honestly, I was starting to feel like maybe I'd actually survive this. But Sienna, she was losing control of the narrative, and she knew it. Celeste had publicly distanced herself, unfriended her on social media, declined to attend events where Sienna would be present. Other book club members started noticing and asking questions. Eventually, Tegan, the one who'd been there that night too, she reached out to me as well. "I need to make this right," Tegan said when we met. "I should have said something that night. I should have told you what they were planning, but I was scared of being cut out of the group, of losing my friends. That's not an excuse, I know, but I want to give you a written statement about what was discussed that night. Everything I remember." She provided dates, times, direct quotes she remembered, strategies they discussed for provoking me and staging evidence. It was detailed, specific, and completely collaborative of what I already had on recording. Sienna realized multiple people were turning against her and started claiming the recordings were fake. Posted on social media that I'd hired someone to edit audio files using AI, that the voices weren't really theirs, that I was so desperate to avoid accountability for my abuse that I'd resorted to deep fakes and fabrications. But people who'd actually listened to the recordings recognized her voice, her specific speaking patterns, phrases she always used. You can't fake that. Not convincingly, anyway. Her parents tried to do damage control. They hired someone to scrub negative information about their daughter from local online forums and social media groups. Comments about the recordings would appear and then disappear a few hours later. Posts sharing details about the fabricated abuse claims got flagged and removed. But it was like trying to stop water with a net. Too many people had heard. Too many people knew the truth. Stephen's attorney sent me a formal separation agreement in early December. The proposal was, Sienna gets 60% of marital assets. I pay her monthly support for 3 years, and I destroy all recordings and never discuss the marriage publicly. There was also a clause about how both parties would refrain from disparaging each other, but the way it was worded made it clear she could say whatever she wanted, and I just had to stay quiet. I sent back a counteroffer. I get 70% given her theft of $47,000 and the documented fraud attempt. She returns all items taken from the house. and absolutely no requirement to destroy evidence or sign any gag order. The recordings stay as insurance against any future false allegations. Stephen showed up at my job site the next morning. Again, this time without Sienna. He tried the intimidation routine again, mentioning his city council connections, how he could make my life very difficult in this town. But here's the thing. 2 of my workers overheard everything. These guys are loyal. They've been with the company since Jake and I started it. One of them, Miguel, he stepped up and said, "Hey boss, you're being recorded right now. Might want to watch what you're saying." Stephen looked around and saw Miguel holding up his phone. Another worker, Anthony, was filming too. Stephen's face went red, realized he'd just walked into another trap. "This isn't over," he said, but he left immediately. I think that's when it finally hit him, that pushing harder would only create more witnesses and more evidence of harassment. He agreed to mediation a week later. Both parties showed up with their representatives. I brought Jake and my attorney, a sharp woman named Miss Henderson, who I'd hired specifically because she had a reputation for not backing down from bullies. Sienna brought her father and his high-powered attorney from his firm. The mediator, this calm, older guy named Mr. Brooks, had us sit on opposite sides of a conference table. He explained the process, how we'd work through each point of contention, find middle ground. But Sienna's attorney started with all these demands, claiming she'd been financially dependent on me, that she'd given up career opportunities to support my business, that she deserved compensation for emotional distress. Miss Henderson let him talk for about 5 minutes. Then she opened her laptop, connected it to the TV screen in the conference room, and said, "Before we continue, I think everyone should hear this." She played selected portions of the book club recording. The room was dead silent except for Sienna's voice talking about framing me for abuse and stealing money. When it got to the part about editing audio files to make me sound threatening, Sienna's face went pale. She looked like she might actually pass out. The mediator cleared his throat. "Well, this changes things considerably." Her attorney looked at Stephen, clearly waiting for direction. Stephen was staring at his daughter with this expression I couldn't quite read. Disappointment? Anger? Fear of what would happen if this went to court? We reached an agreement that day. I keep the house and the business entirely, no questions asked. Sienna returns the $47,000 plus all the items she took from the house. She's got 30 days. We split our remaining joint savings 50-50, which at that point was only about 12 grand anyway. And both parties agree not to disparage each other publicly. But the key part, the part I insisted on, was that the recordings stay with me as insurance. If she ever files false allegations or tries to damage my reputation, I can use them. Miss Henderson made sure that clause was ironclad. Sienna had to move back to her parents' house. From what I heard through Nathan, she was miserable there. Stephen kept grilling her about how she could be so stupid, asking her over and over why she didn't just file for divorce quietly instead of trying to pull off some elaborate scheme. Patricia babied her, told her it wasn't her fault, but even she seemed disappointed. Then karma came for Stephen. About 3 weeks after our agreement was finalized, his construction company lost a major commercial contract. I heard about it through the industry network. The project manager had received anonymous recordings, the ones from book club, and decided he didn't want to work with someone he considered morally compromised. That contract was worth something like $2.3 million. Losing it was a huge blow to Stephen's business. Stephen immediately suspected I'd leaked the recordings. He sent me angry emails, threatened legal action for breach of our agreement, but I forwarded him all my phone records and email logs showing I'd had zero contact with that project manager or anyone at that company. I literally proved I had nothing to do with it. Turns out, it was Jade, Sienna's own cousin. She'd made copies of the recordings before I even asked her to, and when she found out Stephen had tried to intimidate me at my job site, she decided the truth needed wider exposure. She sent them to several people in Stephen's business circle with a simple message. "You should know who you're working with," Jade told me. "He threatened to destroy your livelihood because you wouldn't let his daughter steal from you and ruin your reputation. He needed to face consequences too. People like him think they're untouchable." The fallout in Sienna's family was permanent. Stephen and Patricia cut off Jade, Nathan, and their Aunt Georgia completely, changed their estate plans, removed them as beneficiaries, told them they weren't welcome at family events. Christmas was apparently a nightmare. The extended family had to split up and celebrate separately because half of them refused to be in the same room as the other half.